key in on Google, what comes up is something. You see a key in right here, right on the bottom, on the middle of the screen on the right side. You see that's a colony, that's an island. Okay, that's in the key in, and that's a Greek island or colony, going back to the fact that Timothy's father was a Greek from one of the Greek islands. So when you look up Achaean and you see right there an island or colony of Greece. Now, when you look at the figures like this figure on the left, what do you see right here? What you see, this is a figure of the Achaeans. Now look at that, the one on the left hand side. Okay, look at the one on the left hand side. Now those are actually literally those are black men. Okay, those are black men. When you're talking about Achaea of Liad, okay, and you look at those figures, they were all Negroes, okay? So-called Negroes, so-called West Indians, and so-called Haitians, okay? That's what they were. Now, I want you to focus on the one on the left-hand side because that's an Achaean, okay? That's an Achaean, the one on the left-hand side. Now, look at their helmets, because a lot of times these colonies, their helmets will kind of let you know, because the colonies wasn't the same. You had the Achaeans, you had the Spartans. When you look at the Achaean, look at the top part that looks like a broom. Now, you notice in the back end, it's kind of like a tail, right? Like a long hang tight. Now, this is very important because, and then you also look at the shield. Because you got on the right hand side, right, which that right there, when you look at the helmet and you look at the top, that and you look at that round shield, that looks like a Spartan shield. Now when you look at the left one, that's an Achaean. When you got this the edges that are cut off on that shield, right? So now the reason why I want you to focus on that is because now when you go to Achilles, the mythical character Achilles of the Achaeans, because Achilles was an Achaean, right? Now, you look at the back. Now, look at the back of his helmet. Look at his helmet. Look at the design of his helmet. It's got that tail. Okay? Which is different than the Spartan. The Spartans just had like a broom that stuck up. The Achaeans, which we already know the Spartans were Negroes. You can do your research on that. The Achaeans were also Greeks, another Greek colony, okay? And they were also Negroes, okay? Now, when you look at that, of course, in the bottom, you got Brad Pitt, which he played that. So when you look at the Achaeans, you look at that helmet, that lets you know, okay? Now, different case from whom? From the Spartans. Look at that shield. Look at the helmet. The helmet is of broom, right? You have the broom helmet and you have the round shield. That was a Spartan shield, okay, which was different from that cut off on the edge shield, which that's what for the Achaeans, one of the colonies, and all it was with Negroes, okay? Those were Negroes, man. That's what you have to understand. And the so-called Negro is whom? The so-called Negro is from the tribe of Judah, okay? And then you have the so-called West Indians and Haitians. So we were inhabitants of Greek colonies and islands. Called ourselves Greeks, fighting with the Greeks. When I say Greeks, fighting with the European Greek, because the Greek was a philosophy. Being a Greek was a philosophy. It was a culture, just like the American culture. And we bought into that. And we fought harder than the European Greek. We did that. When you have the scenes like Achilles, when he went out and fought hard to destroy Troy, the king couldn't even fight like he could. We were fighting harder than them because we were more brave than them. And we bought into the Greek culture. Just like right now, the best military dudes out there is Israelites in the American military. But when you look at the American military, it's composed of what? Many different races, many different races of people. You see that? So it's the same mentality. Why? Because that's how the Edomite man moves. When he takes over, he sets up colonies with different races of people. Okay? So now this is Romans chapter 1-16. It says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of the Mashiach, for it is the power of the Most High unto salvation to everyone that believeth. To the Jew first," right? Meaning the Israelite that's born in the land, okay? And also to the Greek. The Greek is the Israelite that's born in a foreign land. All right, so the Greek could have been an Achaean on the left hand side or a Spartan on the right hand side, which all, guess what they were? They were Negroes or so-called black men, okay, of not African descent, okay, of Israelite descent, living in Greece, bought into the culture of Greek, but their roots, their foundation and roots and origins were of Israel, Yasha Allah, okay, sons of the Most High, Yahweh Bashim El Shai, okay, sons of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, okay. So that's what you need to understand about Timothy's father. He could have been an Achaean. He could have been a descendant of the Achaeans, okay, or the Spartans. You never know. It doesn't really go into the details like that because what really mattered was the journey that Timothy had to go through, not necessarily Timothy's father, okay. But Timothy's father was an Israelite who fully bought into the Greekish mentality because it was cool to be an Achaean or a descendant of the Achaeans. It was cool to be a descendant of the Spartans. It wasn't cool in Greece to be a Jew, okay? It wasn't a cool thing. Just like right now, like Jake that still believe that they're Africans, they're not sitting around talking about being proud about being, Africans, although we're not Africans, but Jake ain't walking around saying, yeah, I'm African, because it's not cool to be from Africa. It's cool in 2019 to be from America. That's why everybody wants to proclaim that, even though your roots is not from America. Okay? So now this is I'm gonna finish up with Romans chapter 10 and 12. And two more scriptures. Romans chapter 10 and 12, it says, for there is no difference between the Jew and the Greek. Okay? The Israelite born in the land and the Israelite born in the foreign lands. For the same Lord, which is Yahushua, over all is rich unto all that call upon him. Okay? And the last scripture is John chapter 19, verse 20. It says, well, actually, I'm going to start at 19. It says, and Pilate wrote the title and put it on the cross. And the writing was, and verbatim, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. Right? But it says, this title then read many of the Jews. For the place where Yahushua, because that's in the Hebrew, Yahushua was crucified, was nigh to the city. And it was written in Hebrew first, because he was a Hebrew Israelite from the tribe of Judah. In Greek, why? Because you have Hebrew Israelites that spoke Greek, and Latin, because you had Hebrew Israelites that spoke Latin. Okay? So they wanted to be known to every Hebrew Israelite across the world that speak different languages that the King of the Jews, was being crucified as a mockery. Verse 21, then said the chief priest of the Jews to Pilate, write not the King of the Jews, but that he said, I am King of the Jews. You see that? So that's basically what it is, man. All right. So when you go back to Acts 16 and 1, okay, Acts 16 and 1, and it speaks about Timothy's father being a Greek. Timothy's father was a so-called black man. All right. That's why you have today the Most High is bringing it out. That's why he brought this dude up to America, gave him all the skills. Because back then, guess what he was doing? Why you think that he's built the way that he's built? The way he's moving, the way he's moving? Because guess what? That type of flexibility that he had, that's the type of flexibility that the top warriors of Greece always had. Which the top warriors of Greece were so-called Negroes that were part of either Achaeans, Spartans, and other colonies. Hopefully, with that, you brothers was edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim El Shai. Give a double first and foremost, saying, Kal Halayim La Yahweh Bashim El Shai. Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom salutation to all you sincere Akims across the four winds, pushing this truth with sincerity of heart. I'm your fellow servant, Kasama guy from the DC camp, saying Shalom.